This video contains audio content only. There are no visual elements or images accompanying the audio. If you're expecting to see video footage, please note that this is an intentional audio-only presentation. We recommend listening to this content rather than watching the screen. Thank you for your understanding and enjoy the audio. Welcome to an exploration of a captivating tale from ancient Rome, a story that has resonated through the centuries, inspiring artists and sparking debate. The story of Roman charity. This captivating narrative, passed down through generations, invites us to delve into the complexities of family, duty, and the human body in a society deeply rooted in tradition and patriarchal power. We'll unravel this story in easy-to-understand language, exploring its many layers and the evolving interpretations it has inspired. Imagine a dimly lit Roman prison, the air thick with despair. Within its walls, a condemned man awaits his fate, death by starvation. His daughter, driven by unwavering love and devotion, devises a daring plan to save him, a plan that will challenge societal norms and spark both admiration and controversy. This is the heart of the story of Roman charity, a tale that centers on a daughter's desperate act to nourish her imprisoned father. Over the next few chapters, we'll journey through the heart of this compelling narrative, exploring its many facets and the thought-provoking questions it raises. We'll examine the concept of *pietas*, or filial piety, a cornerstone of Roman society, and how this seemingly simple act of love became a powerful symbol of this fundamental virtue. We'll also delve into the complex power dynamics at play, exploring the roles of gender, family, and authority in ancient Rome. This is more than just a historical anecdote. It's a story that speaks to universal human experiences, the bonds of family, the weight of duty, and the lengths we go to for those we love. We'll uncover how this story, originating in the whispers of ancient Rome, has transcended time, inspiring countless works of art and continuing to provoke discussion even today. Get ready to explore the fascinating evolution of this timeless tale, from its ancient roots to its modern interpretations. We'll examine how artists throughout history have depicted this poignant scene, reflecting the changing social and cultural values of their times. We'll see how interpretations of the story have shifted, revealing evolving perspectives on gender roles, family dynamics, and the human body. Join us as we uncover the layers of meaning embedded within this seemingly simple act of love and devotion. We'll examine the paradoxes and contradictions inherent in the story, exploring how it navigates the delicate balance between societal taboos and deeply held traditions. We'll also consider how the very act of breastfeeding, so central to the narrative, takes on different meanings in different contexts, becoming a symbol of both nurturing and potential exploitation. By the end of this exploration, you'll have a deeper understanding of the story of Roman charity, its historical context, and its enduring legacy. You'll gain insights into the complexities of ancient Roman society, its values, and its anxieties. And perhaps most importantly, you'll be left with a renewed appreciation for the power of storytelling and its ability to illuminate the human condition across time and cultures. Chapter 1. The Daughter Who Fed Her Father. The story of Roman charity, Caritas Romana, stands as one of history's most provocative tales of filial devotion, capturing the imagination of artists, writers, and scholars for nearly 2 millennia. At its heart lies an act of extraordinary sacrifice. A daughter named Pyrrho who secretly breastfeeds her imprisoned father, Simon, condemned to death by starvation. This seemingly simple narrative carries profound implications about family, duty, and the lengths to which love might drive us. The earliest written account of this tale appears in Valerius Maximus's Factorum AC Dictorum Memorabilium Libri X, 9 books of memorable deeds and sayings, composed around 31 CE. However, what many might not realize is that the original version of the story featured not a father and daughter, but a mother and daughter. In this earlier iteration, a plebeian woman imprisoned and sentenced to death by starvation was secretly nursed by her daughter, who had recently given birth. The guard, discovering this act, was so moved by the daughter's devotion that both women were freed and provided for from public funds for the rest of their lives. The transformation of this tale from a mother-daughter narrative to the father-daughter story we know today reflects deeper cultural shifts in Roman society. The father-daughter version, featuring Pyrrho and Simon, quickly became the dominant narrative, resonating with Roman patriarchal values and legal structures. Under Roman law, while a mother's relationship with her children was considered part of natural law, it carried no inheritance rights. In contrast, a father's relationship with his children was codified in civil law, granting him complete authority over his household, including the power of life and death over its members. The story's power lies not just in its shocking premise but in its exploration of fundamental human relationships. The prison setting serves as both literal confinement and metaphorical space where social norms are suspended. Perrault's act of breastfeeding her father exists in this liminal space, simultaneously transgressive and sacred. The guards who witness this deed must grapple with its meaning, initially wondering if they have stumbled upon something against nature, before concluding that it represents the highest fulfillment of natural law: to love one's parents. Archaeological evidence suggests that this story held particular resonance in ancient Roman culture. Wall paintings and terracotta statues from 1st century Pompeii depict scenes of Perrault and Simon, indicating that visual representations were common even before Maximus's written account. These artifacts raise intriguing questions about whether the artistic depictions preceded and inspired Maximus's narrative, or vice versa. The tale's impact extended beyond its immediate cultural context. Among Romans, it carried mythological echoes of Juno's breastfeeding of the adult Hercules, an Etruscan myth that similarly dealt with divine nursing and transformation. The story also resonated with broader themes in Roman culture about the relationship between nourishment, power, and family bonds. The columnae lactaria in the Roman marketplace, where wet nurses would feed babies for a fee, demonstrates how the act of breastfeeding transcended purely familial relationships in Roman society. Maximus's telling of the story presents what he calls an ekphrastic challenge, suggesting that the visual impact of this scene surpasses any written description. Men's eyes are riveted in amazement when they see the painting of this act and renew the features of the long bygone incident in astonishment at the spectacle now before them, believing that in those silent outlines of limbs they see living and breathing bodies. The story's inclusion in Pliny the Elder's Natural History, as one of the greatest examples of human affection known, further cemented its status in classical literature. In Pliny's version, which returns to the mother-daughter narrative, the guard's discovery leads not just to forgiveness but to public recognition and support, suggesting that such extraordinary devotion deserved not just mercy but reward. The power of Roman charity lies partly in its ability to evoke multiple, sometimes contradictory, emotional responses. It is simultaneously beautiful and disturbing, noble and transgressive. The daughter's sacrifice represents both a violation of natural order and its highest fulfillment. This paradox helps explain why the story has maintained its power to provoke and inspire across centuries and cultures. The tale raises profound questions about the nature of familial duty and the limits of filial piety. What obligations do children owe their parents? How far should one go to preserve a parent's life? The story suggests that true filial devotion knows no bounds, yet its shocking nature forces us to confront our own assumptions about family relationships and bodily autonomy. Chapter 2. Beyond the Breast. Exploring the power dynamics and shifting symbolism of a timeless tale. The story of Roman charity presents a complex web of power dynamics that extends far beyond its surface narrative of filial devotion. At its core, the tale interrogates fundamental questions about gender, authority, and the body as both nourishment and symbol. Through centuries of artistic and literary interpretation, these power dynamics have been repeatedly re-examined and recontextualized, revealing changing attitudes about family, gender, and society. The most immediate power dynamic at play is the reversal of traditional parent-child roles. Simon, the father who once provided for and protected his daughter, becomes utterly dependent on her for survival. This dependency is physical, immediate, and deeply intimate. The father's mouth at his daughter's breast creates a striking inversion of the natural order, where the child once suckled at the mother's breast. This role reversal is made more complex by the gender dynamic at play. The daughter assumes a traditionally maternal role toward her father, crossing both generational and gender boundaries. The prison setting adds another layer to these power dynamics. Simon is doubly powerless, constrained by both his physical chains and his dependency on his daughter's milk. Perrault, meanwhile, exercises a form of power that transcends the physical constraints of the prison. Though she enters the prison as a supplicant, Her ability to sustain life through her body grants her a form of authority that supersedes even that of the prison guards. The guards themselves represent another crucial element in the power structure of the narrative. Their role as observers transforms the private act of breastfeeding into a public spectacle. Their gaze, and by extension society's gaze, must determine whether this act represents a perversion of nature or its highest fulfillment. The fact that they ultimately choose the latter interpretation suggests something about how patriarchal society sought to contain and rationalize acts that threatened to disturb its basic assumptions about gender and power. The symbolic significance of breast milk itself carries multiple layers of meaning in the story. In medieval Christian interpretation, breast milk was often equated with Christ's blood, both being substances that gave life and represented sacrifice. The Virgin Mary's milk was venerated as a holy relic, and pilgrims would travel to sites like Walsingham and Chartres to view phials supposedly containing it. This religious context added new dimensions to the interpretation of Roman charity, suggesting parallels between Perrault's sacrifice and divine love. The artistic depictions of Roman charity, particularly during the Baroque period, reveal complex negotiations of power through visual elements. Peter Paul Rubens's 1625 version presents a striking study in contrasts that embody these power dynamics. The daughter Perrault is dressed in sumptuous crimson silk, symbolizing both her moral virtue and her position in the free world, while Simon's near-naked body emphasizes his vulnerability. Yet Rubens complicates this dynamic by depicting Simon with sinewy, muscular arms and an erect nipple, suggesting retained masculinity despite his dependent position. The presence of voyeuristic guards in many depictions adds another layer of complexity to the power dynamics. In Hendrik ter Brugen's recently rediscovered 1622 painting, acquired by the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the guard is barely visible in the background, creating what art historian Wayne Franitz describes as a lurking danger. This shadowy presence transforms the intimate act of nurturing into a public spectacle, suggesting that even private acts of devotion exist within larger structures of social control. The evolution of artistic representations reveals shifting attitudes toward female agency and power. Early depictions in Germany and Italy around 1525 emerged independently of each other, suggesting a widespread fascination with the theme. The brothers Barthel and Sebald Boehm produced multiple versions between them, with Sebald's 1540 print being notably larger and more explicitly erotic than their other works. This version shows Simon with his arms tied behind his back, but with his muscular chest prominently displayed, while Perrault stands naked between his knees. The inscription reads, "Whither does piety not penetrate, what does she not devise?" suggesting both admiration for and unease with female ingenuity. The commodification of breast milk in Roman society provides an important context for understanding these power dynamics. The Columnae Lactaria, where wet nurses sold their milk, demonstrates that breast milk was both a commodity and a substance that created non-biological kinship bonds. This commercial aspect of breast milk adds another dimension to Perrault's act. She uses what could be a marketable resource to save her father instead. The story's gender dynamics were further complicated when artists began including Perrault's own child in their depictions, a detail absent from the original legend. This addition, which became common in the 17th century, served multiple purposes. It emphasized Perrault's primary role as a mother, potentially diffusing the incestuous undertones of the scene. However, it also created a more complex moral equation, a mother choosing to share her milk between her infant and her father, suggesting a competition between different forms of familial duty. Caravaggio's inclusion of the scene in his 1606 altarpiece, The Seven Works of Mercy, marked a crucial turning point in the artistic treatment of Roman charity. By placing this secular story within a religious context, Caravaggio elevated Perrault's act to the level of sacred charity. This interpretation sparked what art historian Jutta Gisela Sperling describes as a veritable craze for gallery paintings of Perrault and Simon, spreading through Italy, France, the southern Netherlands, and Utrecht. The power dynamics in the story are further complicated by its original mother-daughter version. Nicolas Poussin's The Gathering of the Manna, 1639, is one of the few works to depict this version, showing a daughter feeding her mother while her own child competes for her milk. This representation raises questions about matrilineal bonds and female solidarity that are absent from the father-daughter version. Artemisia Gentileschi's interpretation of Roman charity is particularly significant as one of the few versions created by a female artist. As a woman who had experienced and publicly confronted sexual violence, Gentileschi's treatment of this intimate scene between father and daughter offers a unique perspective on the power dynamics involved. Her version demonstrates how gender affects not only the story's subjects but also its interpretation. The shifting symbolism of breast milk itself reflects changing attitudes toward female power and nurture. In medieval times, breast milk was often equated with wisdom and spiritual nourishment. The mythical figure Philosophia Sapientia was depicted nursing philosophers, suggesting that female nurture could be a source of knowledge and power. This association adds another dimension to Perrault's act. She is not just sustaining her father's body but potentially transmitting wisdom or virtue. The power dynamics of Roman charity continue to resonate with contemporary concerns about bodily autonomy, gender roles, and familial obligation. Modern interpretations often focus on questions of consent and agency that earlier versions overlooked. The story raises uncomfortable questions about the limits of filial duty and the extent to which children, particularly daughters, are expected to sacrifice their bodily autonomy for their parents. Chapter 3. A Paradox of Piety. Navigating taboo and tradition in Roman charity. The story of Roman charity presents a fascinating paradox, an act that simultaneously transgresses and upholds societal norms. The tale navigates a complex territory between taboo and tradition, challenging viewers and readers to reconcile its disturbing elements with its celebration of filial piety. This tension has made the story both problematic and persistently compelling across centuries. At the heart of this paradox lies the act of adult breastfeeding, which violates fundamental taboos while being presented as the highest expression of familial devotion. The Roman guards who discover Perrault feeding Simon encounter this paradox directly. As recorded by Valerius Maximus, they initially question whether they have witnessed something against nature, specifically wondering if they have stumbled upon an act of lesbianism in the original mother-daughter version. Their eventual interpretation of the act as exemplifying the first law of nature, to love one's parents, demonstrates how societies struggled to categorize and contain this transgressive act within acceptable moral frameworks. The incestuous undertones of the father-daughter version created particular anxiety for artists and viewers. This discomfort is evident in the evolution of artistic depictions, particularly in the 17th century when painters began including Perrault's infant in the scene. This addition, absent from the original legend, served to normalize the act of breastfeeding while creating a new moral complexity, the suggestion that Perrault might be choosing between feeding her father and her child. Artists like Rubens and his followers used this device to deflect potential interpretations of incestuous desire, though the addition of the child paradoxically heightened the scene's domestic intimacy. The story's treatment of the body presents another layer of paradox. Roman society had complex attitudes toward the female body and its functions. While breastfeeding was considered a natural and noble act, public exposure of the female breast was generally taboo. The prison setting of Roman charity creates a liminal space where these normal social restrictions are suspended, yet the presence of watching guards ensures that the act remains within the public sphere. This tension between private act and public spectacle is particularly evident in Caravaggio's treatment of the scene in his Seven Works of Mercy, where the intimate moment becomes part of a larger religious narrative. The religious dimension adds another layer to this paradox. Early Christian interpretations drew parallels between Perrault's milk and Christ's blood, both life-giving substances offered through sacrifice. The Virgin Mary's milk was venerated as a holy relic, and medieval mystics like Bernard of Clairvaux had visions of drinking from the Virgin's breast. These religious associations helped legitimize the potentially transgressive aspects of Roman charity by placing it within a framework of divine love and sacrifice. The story's treatment in different cultures reveals varying approaches to its central paradox. In the southern Netherlands, the sculpture adorning the belfry of Ghent known as the Mammelakker, literally, breast sucker, demonstrates a more direct, even humorous approach to the subject. This architectural detail, dating from 1741, suggests a culture more comfortable with the story's bodily aspects than some of its contemporaries. The transformation of the tale from its original mother-daughter version to the father-daughter narrative reveals changing attitudes toward gender and power. The mother-daughter version, with its suggestion of female solidarity and matrilineal nurture, was largely supplanted by a version that reinforced patriarchal authority even in its apparent subversion. This shift reflects Roman society's legal structures, where a father's relationship with his children was codified in civil law while a mother's relationship remained in the realm of natural law. The paradox extends to the story's treatment of power dynamics. Perrault's act simultaneously demonstrates her power, her ability to sustain life through her body, and her subjugation to patriarchal authority. The father's dependency on his daughter creates a role reversal that threatens traditional power structures, yet the story's framing as an example of filial piety ultimately reinforces those same structures. Artists grappled with these paradoxes in various ways. Hendrik ter Bruggen's recently rediscovered 1622 version emphasizes the solemnity of the scene while acknowledging its potential for scandal through the inclusion of a voyeuristic observer. The Bayham brothers' earlier prints, particularly Sebald's explicitly erotic 1540 version, more directly confronted the scene's troubling sexual undertones while still framing it within the context of piety. The story's treatment of aged and young bodies presents another paradox. Roman art typically idealized young, beautiful bodies while treating aged bodies with less interest. Yet in Roman charity, the aged father's body becomes a central focus, often depicted with careful attention to anatomical detail. This treatment challenges conventional artistic approaches while reinforcing the story's themes of mortality and sustenance. The tale's popularity in the early modern period coincided with changing attitudes toward wet nursing and maternal duty. As upper-class women were increasingly encouraged to breastfeed their own children rather than employing wet nurses, Roman charity presented a complex model of maternal sacrifice that both supported and complicated these new ideals. Chapter 4. From Hidden Canvas to Public Discourse. Unearthing the Evolving Narrative of Roman Charity. The artistic journey of Roman charity through history provides a fascinating lens through which to view changing social attitudes and moral perspectives. From ancient Roman frescoes to Baroque masterpieces, each era's interpretation of this provocative tale reveals as much about the society that produced it as about the story itself. The earliest surviving depictions come from Pompeii, where wall paintings and terracotta statues from the 1st century CE suggest that the image was already well established in Roman visual culture. These early representations raise intriguing questions about the relationship between visual and textual narratives. Did Valerius Maximus's written account inspire these artworks, or did he document an already popular visual tradition? The excavated artifacts from Pompeii demonstrate that the theme resonated deeply with Roman audiences, appearing in both public and private spaces. A significant transformation in the artistic treatment of Roman charity occurred around 1525, when the theme independently emerged in both southern Germany and northern Italy. The Bayham brothers, Barthel and Sebald, produced multiple versions that reflected the complex religious and social tensions of Reformation Germany. Barthel's first rendering in 1525 is particularly significant, as it coincided with a brief jail term he, his brother, and their friend Georg Pench served for charges of atheism. This biographical detail adds a personal dimension to their interpretation of imprisonment and salvation. The evolution of the theme through different artistic mediums reveals its remarkable adaptability. Artists worked in bronze medals, frescoes, engravings, drawings, oil paintings, ceramics, and even inlaid wood decorations. Each medium brought its own constraints and opportunities, leading to diverse interpretations of the central act. Oil paintings often chose the classicizing half-length format, placing Perrault alongside ancient heroines and incorporating her into the genre of the strong woman, similar to depictions of Lucretia, Dido, and Cleopatra. Caravaggio's inclusion of Roman charity in his 1606–1607 altarpiece, The Seven Works of Mercy, marked a crucial turning point. By incorporating this secular story into a religious context, Caravaggio elevated it to the level of sacred allegory. This interpretation sparked what art historian Jutta Gisela Sperling describes as a veritable craze for gallery paintings of the subject, spreading through Italy, France, the southern Netherlands, and Utrecht. The influence of Caravaggio's interpretation can be seen in the work of the Utrecht Caravaggisti, particularly Gerrit van Honthorst and Abraham Blommaert. Peter Paul Rubens and his workshop produced at least 3 versions of Roman Charity, with his 1630 interpretation becoming particularly influential. Rubens's followers introduced the innovation of including Perrault's sleeping child in the scene, a detail absent from the original legend. This addition served multiple purposes. It helped deflect potential interpretations of incest, emphasized Perrault's maternal nature, and created a 3-generational narrative that could be read as an allegory of the ages of man. The technical challenges of depicting Roman charity pushed artists to develop new approaches to composition and lighting. The intimate nature of the scene, combined with its public setting and moral implications, required careful handling of perspective and shadow. Ter Bruegen's recently rediscovered 1622 version demonstrates this masterful balance, using chiaroscuro to create a solemn atmosphere while suggesting lurking danger through the barely visible observer. The story's journey through different national schools of painting reveals varying cultural approaches to its themes. Italian interpretations often emphasized the dramatic and emotional aspects, while Northern European versions tended to focus more on the moral exemplum. Spanish painters like Giuseppe de Ribera and Bartolomé Esteban Murillo brought their own distinct interpretation, influenced by Catholic spirituality and Spanish concepts of honor. The role of female artists in interpreting Roman charity is particularly significant. Artemisia Gentileschi's version stands out as one of the few interpretations by a woman artist. Given Gentileschi's personal history and her known focus on female subjects, her treatment of this theme offers a unique perspective on its gender dynamics and power relations. The story's architectural manifestations, such as the Mammelacher sculpture on the Belfry of Ghent, 1741, demonstrate its integration into public space and civic identity. This permanent public display of Roman charity suggests a level of social acceptance of its complex themes, at least in certain cultural contexts. The rediscovery of lost versions continues to enhance our understanding of the theme's development. The 2019 identification of Ter Bruegen's long-lost Roman charity, now in the Metropolitan Museum of Art, provides new insights into how 17th-century artists approached this challenging subject. The painting had not been seen publicly since 1692, and its re-emergence allows scholars to better understand both the artist's technique and the broader context of Dutch Golden Age painting. The narrative's journey through printmaking and reproduction is equally significant. Prints allowed wider dissemination of different interpretations and influenced how the story was understood across social classes. The Bayham brothers' prints, in particular, reached a broader audience than paintings and helped establish iconographic conventions that would influence later artists. Contemporary interpretations of Roman charity continue to emerge, often focusing on its relevance to modern discussions of gender, power, and bodily autonomy. The story's persistence in cultural memory, despite its challenging themes, demonstrates its enduring ability to provoke discussion about fundamental human relationships and moral obligations. As we trace the artistic evolution of Roman charity, we see not just changing aesthetic styles but shifting social attitudes toward family, gender, duty, and the body. Each new interpretation adds to our understanding of how societies grapple with these fundamental human themes, making the story as relevant to contemporary discussions as it was to ancient Roman audiences. The story of Roman charity, focusing on Perrault breastfeeding her imprisoned father Simon, is more than a simple historical anecdote. It's a complex narrative exploring the intricacies of family, duty, and the human body within ancient Roman society. Perrault's act, driven by pietas, filial piety, served as an exemplum a model of virtue, while also raising questions about societal norms and taboos surrounding the female body and incest. The story's connection to the myth of Juno breastfeeding Hercules further complicates its interpretation, adding a layer of divine precedent to Perrault's unconventional act. The presence of similar depictions in Pompeii suggests its prevalence in Roman popular culture. The narrative reveals the patriarchal power dynamics of Roman society, where the pater familias held absolute authority. Perrault's act can be seen as both submission to and defiance of this structure, blurring traditional gender roles. Breastfeeding, a primal act of nurturing, becomes a powerful symbol, laden with both vulnerability and agency. This tension is central to the story's enduring appeal and its varied interpretations throughout history. Artistic representations of Roman charity, from 16th-century engravings to Baroque paintings, reflect evolving social and cultural values. Early depictions wrestled with the story's inherent ambiguity, highlighting both pietas and potential eroticism. Later artists, particularly Rubens and his followers, introduced the figure of a child to mitigate the potential incestuous undertones, emphasizing Perrault's maternal role and adding allegorical layers of meaning. This evolution demonstrates how artistic interpretations reflect and shape societal anxieties surrounding gender roles, family dynamics, and the human body. The story's enduring legacy lies in its paradoxical nature. It highlights the tension between upholding tradition and navigating taboo, forcing us to confront uncomfortable questions about the boundaries of familial love and the complexities of human behavior. The act of breastfeeding itself becomes a site of symbolic contestation, representing both nurturing and potential exploitation. The evolving interpretations of Roman charity reveal how societal values and anxieties shape our understanding of the past and inform our present. Exploring stories like Roman charity provides a window into the complexities of human experience across cultures and time periods. These narratives challenge us to confront difficult questions, broaden our perspectives, and deepen our understanding of the human condition. They remind us that the past is not a static entity, but a dynamic conversation that continues to resonate in the present. What are your thoughts on the story of Roman charity? How do you interpret its enduring appeal and evolving interpretations? Share your perspectives in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and suggest topics for future explorations. The journey of learning is a continuous one, and your curiosity is the fuel that drives it forward.